Well, hello, folks. We're back again. Another day. Another turn around the world. The sun ain't quite shining yet, but I feel it's going to shine pretty good today. It's going to be a chilly day today in Columbus, Ohio. But, I think it's going to be a good day. I think I'm going to really focus on doing some things that's going to lead to some unique ways to make money with my creativity and things like that. I wouldn't say unique, but definitely unique to me type of thing. So I'm going to be working on that. Also, just really kind of being, kind of reevaluating my system. I went to go apply for one of the work-a-day, pay-a-day jobs, and it didn't go so well, Not because I was trying to do something, just like the system didn't work the way it's supposed to. They were supposed I'm not sure if you've had to do any work today, pay today apps or any kind of work in general. There's this new I-9 system, I guess. I don't know, where basically you have to ask a friend or somebody to verify who you are. It might be a question, it might be a photo. Not 100% sure how it works. But I was going through that process. It didn't quite work out. A lot of shenanigans happened, and I was just like, I'm done with this. I'm going back home. At first I really kind of was struggling with it. It's like, oh man, I need to make some money real fast. Probably should have stayed and stuck it out. But during the time I was there, I was hearing them getting a lot of phone calls saying when's the next job going out? Is there going to be anything coming out? And it's like, no, we don't got anything right now. No, we don't got anything. And I heard like 4 or 5 times. So it just, overall the whole experience just didn't sit right with me as far as like moving forward on it. And the idea, one, it's understand we are in a very heavy digital revolution. And the idea, a lot of things are switching over to digital, job applications, contacting health insurance, all this stuff is switching over to more of a digital situation. The idea that you will have to talk to some kind of AI system before you actually get through it. I mean, it's already here. It's been here for years. But I think the part that is that I've noticed a trend of in a lot of businesses is they're starting to remove the people aspect from customer service and making you totally reliant on the AI system to help you do what you want to do. In some cases, like my cases, a few times, the AI system didn't have the option to answer the question. There was no option to call anybody. So it was like, what do I do? It is like muddling through and figuring out, watching a bunch of YouTube videos, but that didn't actually help at all. So, not to say that technology is bad. I just think the way that we're implemented as a society in certain positions, there need to be a person there, in some way, maybe like a person as a backup, that you connect with and say, okay, I'm having this problem, the AI system isn't working for me, and so on and so forth, and to get the things together, because I feel like that would really cut down on a lot of things and stuff like that. Now, I do understand that people do get upset. And the first person they take it out on, and when they call the company, is the person that answers the phones. I can understand, the need to kind of, maybe forego that, to really kind of put something in there that is, in general, emotionless and, not really connected to the situation for a person to get mad at. I've tried to yell at AI. It doesn't respond as, the same way a human would. It just, like, hey, what option are you going to pick? Yada, yada, yada. So on today's topic, that's enough ranting about that. I don't know why I felt the need to talk about that. I guess there was a point I was going to make later in the video. But we're going to start with today's topic. Which is a room getting smaller or are you getting bigger? I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that whole statement as I was going to get my coffee this morning. Like, what does that actually mean? Like, that's some really cryptic shit, man. But I think where I'm starting to realize what that means, it's probably like, a phrase that's stuck in my head and I kind of stuck with it. And I've been defining it as I kind of move forward, really kind of understand what it means to me. And I think it's like kind of a situation. It's like, it's a little bit of the big fish in the little pond type of situation, but in a kind of different way. Not too different, but kind of different. like, a lot of times we go through a process of growth and really kind of change our life and different things like that, and we run into roadblocks and run into different things, and emotional things happen, and yada yada yada, and so on and so forth. And so you might be in a space where you feel like things are closing in on you. You feel like, rent's about to be due, your phone bill's about to due, your kids got to eat. You want to go out and get some fun in and stuff like that, and all you got is like $2. You got to put that on the electric bill. And that's one way to look at it. It's like, it's just slowly closing in on like all the things that you just don't want to happen in your life. It's just slowly closing in. And the reality of it is sometimes what I've been realizing, I think in this current situation related to what I just said, is basically what my brother Owen said to me on the phone, which is basically maybe that's God just telling you that you shouldn't be doing that. You should be going to do something else, And I kind of took that to heart in a way of saying, it's time to really go on this. It's trying to really kind of put some things together, because to really kind of get me going. Because that's always been, I think, one of my biggest problems, one of the many problems I have that I've been working on a lot lately is not so much the commitment, but really kind of understanding, like, if you got this is point A and this is point B, the space in between, like, how do you, what path is that? How do you walk it? Like, what direction are you going to get to point B, starting from point A, which is usually little knowledge, like maybe sometimes not, maybe having the talent, but not having the full skills to really kind of bring your things to fruition, or, you want to start a business, but, it'll be your first business, and you don't really have any business people around you to really ask, there's a whole bunch of scenarios I can think of, but ultimately what comes down to is in those situations, I know I find myself, and I've seen a lot of people kind of have this type of motion, especially like when you're in the beginning stages of like growth and change and things like that. It can feel like things are not progressing in a way that you want it to. And I think that's really kind of the thing where you kind of got to step out of yourself and do what I said in the last video, which is take stock on what you have and what you have done so far, and really kind of, if all you have is passion, really kind of, not so much drive on it where it leads you to do unnecessary things to kind of fulfill your goals and stuff, but really in the idea that you say, you know what, I'm very passionate about this. Let me see how can I use this passion for what I love and really transfer it into, a business idea or what have you. Little things like that. I'm sure there's a little bit more detail I can go into on that particular topic, but I don't want to. But, I think to bring it back to me as it relates to this whole show and, my process of becoming a multimedia producer and, doing that kind of things like that. I think I'm in the midst of that type of scenario, really kind of seeing that play through, because there are some life situations that I need to get on like really fast that involve having funds. You know what they are because we all have to do them. And I was very, I think one of my biggest concerns is that because of the current situation that I have going on, things could change, really fast. Things could escalate in a way, I wouldn't say not beneficial, but just not the way that I think it should. And I think that's really kind of the biggest things when you're trying to pursue your goals, is really kind of be realistic about the outcomes and be realistic about where you're at and, what you're asking to do, And I think that's really kind of the thing that I'm really starting to settle into and not be as scared, or frantic about the situation as I have been. And really kind of understanding, like, you know what? I got these skills, I got these talents, I got the tools, I got all the things that I need to go out and make money. So let's go out and make some money. So I got a couple ideas I'm going to work on and, hopefully work up a little proposal to kind of present to different clients and things like that. We're going to see how it goes. It might work, might not, but I think it's really kind of like just really kind of taking the shot and, hoping for the best, because if it's nothing else, it could be a learning experience where I could learn, okay, what are these particular clients looking for that I'm selling this particular service to, and how can I refine the service that I want to sell to them to benefit them in a way as well as be a financial a financially good thing. We're not spending a different amount of money and stuff like that. So it's just really, I think it's really about, why questions are important and understanding on the path that you're on. Sometimes it just requires action. It requires just getting out there and doing something about it. Taking a chance on yourself, really believing in yourself, understanding that, things aren't going to go your way all the time. But if you really apply yourself and you work towards it and you really have a good structural plan, there's a good possibility. And I use the word good possibility because you can have the best plans in the world, you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the passion in the world, and your business still fails. So that's why I use the word probably. If we, get in that whole another video. But ultimately, having the knowledge from, really kind of going and trying things to kind of grow your business, whether they work or not, it helps you find your business. It helps you kind of decide, like, is this going to be a thing that I do for long term, or is this going to be something I'm just going to do right now? It could be, you could say, what, you like preserves, you want to sell preserves at, the Pearl Street Market downtown, but you got to figure out how much you got to get a table, and you find out how much you got to get to the table, and it's like $175, and you only get a check for like $125, and like I said, you got bills to pay. But in reality, what you can look at and say, what, I don't have $175 right now. But there's a little spiritual wiggle room where I might have to give up, Netflix for a month, or, maybe not go buy coffee in the morning, go get a coffee machine and make your own coffee, many things to do to kind of save money, or just looking at your resources and say, what, I got $10, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this $10 in the pot. I'm going to continue to do that until I reach the goal of money that I'm going to need to take what I want to do to the next level. And in this particular case, you need that $75 to get that table, or $175 to get that table. So you save up, $10. It might take you a year, it may take you 6 months, it may take you a certain amount of time. But I think in those situations where it takes you more time than you want to spend on it, you also have to be in a financial planning mindset that you plan for the possibility of the prices going up. You can also say, the prices might go down, but in general, make sure that you plan for the prices going up when you're trying to do something. Buy a building, rent a building, get equipment, any number of those things. Prices may vary over time and stuff like that. So it's very realistic to say, what, I'm going to put, instead of $175, I'm just going to put a whole $200 in there. It might be a little stressful for a couple months, couple weeks, whatever. But that's what I want to do to kind of help me move forward. Kind of getting my preserves on the table and sell them at the Pearl Market. So, and I think that's really kind of the things that I'm really kind of applying now, is saying, what, I really have to get out there, and I really got to push to do bigger and better things starting right now, starting today. And, work on things that's going to be long-term beneficial, and, work through the process of understanding of what I said before, getting from point A to point B. And it all starts with the first step, I feel like I've made a big first step, with the things that I've outlined in, recent videos. If you haven't seen them, they're on my timeline. You can catch the first episode at Click the Grindhouse on YouTube, as well as on here on Facebook, on my Facebook timeline as well. A lot of good things going on. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is that it's really about, enjoying yourself for the most part, because at the end of the day, that's all you got really when it comes to building a business. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, it's going to be days where you're going to be stressed out. But if you can overall find those moments in joy and really kind of achieve your goals, whether it's saying, today I was able to put some money down, or I was able to get some business cards, or, make a flyer, write a commercial script, any number of things, that you could do to kind of make that first step to kind of moving forward, And a lot of times what I think that happens when going back to the topic of today's show, is the room getting smaller, are you getting bigger? A lot of times in that process, until you kind of reach that goal that you're looking to reach, you may hit some, plateaus along the way, but until you reach that goal, sometimes you don't feel like you're successful. So that's where the whole idea of the wall closing in, the room getting smaller, but you might be bigger because, like, you might be right on the verge of success. You might be on the verge of cracking the code on what it is that you're going to do. You might be on the verge of, really kind of solidifying, a brand new identity that's going to take you to a whole new level and really kind of emphasize who you are as a person. Any number of things can happen, but it all comes down to really being diligent, really kind of understanding that it's a big picture situation. It's definitely a big picture situation. You can't focus on a corner. You can't say, I'm going to spend, 10 years trying to paint this little tree. Sometimes you have to, like, back up and say, what haven't I finished on the picture? What do I need to work on? What colors do I need? All those little things, I could transfer into, like, the metaphor, you could transfer into, like, what resources you need, what finances you need, what kind of partnerships you need to make, all kinds of things, So, I think on this road of growth, those are the things that I'm going to work toward to adhere to in my life. Really kind of not being overwhelmed by not succeeding in the time frame that I want, but also being mindful of, continue to build my resources in various different ways, may not be, that particular job that I just said. I still have to get out there and go look for ways to, fund my dreams and stuff, and really kind of make it happen. Are there ways out there? I'm sure there are, I find a couple courses on Google where they teach you to do various things with AI and stuff. It's a pretty reasonable fee. I think it was like $49, something like that. So, that is probably a future-proof job right now. The idea that you'll be able to do a lot of things with AI and stuff, and I think for me that's going to be a goal, is really kind of understanding and what the place is in my life with AI, because I still kind of feel freaked out about it in various different ways, and I can't say this enough. One of the biggest ways is I don't know who owns it. I could spend like weeks, months, years creating something beautiful, and then the laws change, and then next thing you know, Google has ownership of all the content that I created, using my IP to input it into the AI system. But because I use the AI system to create the finished product, now it owes them either a cut or the whole profits that I made from, And you might say, that's kind of never happened, I'm sure there's regulations to prevent that from happening. Here's the truth about that. There is no regulations on how AI is created, from, construction to people putting in, their little prompts to create things. There's no regulations on that. So there's no regulations on, what they're using, particularly to power the AI. 3 letters I would like to look into today is SMR. That's a small modular reactor. What this is going to be used to power these AI systems, these data centers that are soaking up a lot of energy and stuff like that. And it's probably going to get to a point where they realize, like, hey, we can't keep making people pay for this stuff when it's like billions of dollars at stake, and we're investing tons of money in it and stuff like that. In other news, AI has slowed down. There's a lot of large corporations who are pulling out of AI. Does that mean that it's going to go away? No, just like the dot-com boom. So certain people will consolidate it and really kind of use it to their benefit and really kind of make tons and tons of millions of dollars with it. And other people will just be able to use it and become super proficient at it and, do all kinds of great things with it, and build their brand that way. But in the meantime, I would definitely suggest is really kind of getting into the terms of agreement. I would say that for anything, because there's a lot of things that are happening right now within that terms of agreement. Whether it's Uber, Lyft, Nintendo, that are really kind of sticking it to different consumers in various different ways. That probably is nice for a corporation to do. So all that is to say is that despite all the craziness that's going on in the world, despite the dumpster fire smell that we get on our nose day in and day out when we walk outside to go to our job, look on the internet, all these different things. You can still succeed. You can still push yourself and drive yourself to be in a better place than where you are right now. I think the biggest trick that they're playing on us right now is convincing us that we have no options but to submit. We have tons of options. Will those options slowly shrink? More than likely. But right now, at this moment, we were talking about AI. There's tons of classes. I think Microsoft is doing free AI training. You know, there's lots of places doing free AI training. You know, starting a business. You know, there's a lot of groups like SCORE that will help you build a business plan and stuff like that for totally free. You know, you get a mentor and everything. You know, so there's elements like that that really can propel people into success in these turbulent times, and help them probably solidify themselves, you know, and maybe put them in a place where they can invest in various different things to kind of also go along with the solidification of their life and, you know, their financing and different things like that. So I think that's a mouthful for today. Like I said, there's going to be really a mindset of productivity. I'm going to work heavily on follow through on that and really kind of producing some really great things today. And I think I'm about to start stockpiling for 2026 to release a lot of good stuff. You know, have a constant flow of content and all that good stuff like that to please, you know, the algorithm and such. So as always, stay protected, be blessed, and have a great day.